By the way, I've been working to clean up our channel. We've been recording the sessions here, but all it had on it was the date of the Dare to Be Great meeting. So what I've been doing is taking the content of the invitations of what the meetings were going to be about, and I've been putting that into the description. So I've worked my way back until I think I'm in July now. And so I'll continue that process, and then we're going to publish the channel so everybody can look. But one of the things I really want to do is I want to put all our videos through Gemini to really come up with an effective summary, something equivalent to what the AI companion in Zoom does. I have those for some of the recent sessions, but not the earlier ones. But I've noticed that Gemini does a really good job of um, understanding video content,
Yeah.
even if it's just information about signs or whatever's in the background. In other words, it's not just a simple transcript. So we'll try to get that out there so we don't put people through listening to 2 to 3 hour recordings to get like 20 minutes of solid content.
Will the videos be published online though?
Yes, yes, they are. If you go to the Dare to Be Great channel, there
Oh,
the actual videos are there in YouTube.
so do we get royalties?
I, interesting. I never thought of it that way, but that could be interesting. Okay, 9:08. We got 2 minutes more, and we'll get started here. Uh,
Yeah,
so
Mr. Bill,
yes,
let me tell you one thing. I'm from Pakistan and I'm working day and night on Gemini, using Geminis.
yeah.
And right now I'm trying my best to train people, especially youngsters, how to use Gemini from Nano Banana. First of all, from GPT script to Nano Banana, then images to video, so that they can change their life for some work like YouTube automation or something else. They can monetize their content.
Absolutely. We had a project called Write a Book, and we were encouraging middle schoolers, well, pretty much anybody of any age, but particularly middle
Yeah,
schoolers, to write a book. Because when I was teaching at the university, I had all my undergraduate students write books. In
yeah,
other words, the assignment was instead of here's your textbook, and we're going to talk about this one textbook, I gave them a list of about 15 books, said you read them all, and you understand the topic good enough to write your own book on the topic. And it was tremendously successful. My graduates were typically hired in at the position of graduate plus 2 years experience. And
yes,
I had students that were hired straight well, within a year of graduating from the university, were earning the equivalent of $500,000 a year based on today's money. Um, so that this idea today that you can use tools like Gemini, Deep Research, Notebook LM, especially that combination, to master any subject, and then once you've mastered it, to help you write a book. Not write it for you, though. That's the really, really important thing is you don't use AI uh, to if you're trying to learn something, if you're trying to know something, you don't use it to do all the work for you. You use it to assist you. And so that's really good. Okay, 9/11. So I'm going to start here the show. Ding. I'm Bill Graham. I'm the president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub, and I declare this meeting on 1 November 2025 to be open. The topic for today's meeting is really looking at, it's really driven by this coming week's second World Summit for Social Development. That's the United Nations conference being held in Doha, Qatar. The first summit, World Summit for Social Development, was held in 1995 in Copenhagen. And it was the biggest assembly of world leaders in history. And so we're really looking with anticipation what might take place next week. But one of the major issues is that out of the meeting of 1995 was the idea that peace is well served if we have lesser inequality gaps, if there's more equality in the world, and if there's less pain due to hunger, due to poverty, due to a lack of gender equality, of all these major issues, all can become triggers to disturbing the peace. So in 1995, they really said, "Hey, we have to try to solve these world problems or these major problems here to ensure the peace, to give peace a greater chance." And so the way to do that was seen that the key to all of that was development, to create more development, especially in developing countries, to provide the incomes that could help reduce poverty and hunger and so forth. And so the main focus was creation and protection of jobs. And in the preparation for this year's summit, there's been several conferences here during this year preparing for the conference coming up next week. There was a lot of discussion about fulfilling the goals of that original meeting. Now, that original meeting in 1995, since it focused on development, one could say was really a major factor in the establishment of the Millennium Development Goals, which have now become the Sustainable Development Goals. And the Secretary General made it a real issue now for several years in preparation of next week's conference to point out that, hey, we have not delivered on those goals of 1995. And of course, we're not delivering on the SDGs. And the reason we have SDGs is because we didn't meet most of the goals of the MDGs. And so it was reiterated that the provision to ensure everybody has access to a meaningful and fairly compensated job. But this now is running up smack against the development in the world to reduce the number of jobs. For every dollar that's being spent on SDGs and getting jobs and development, trying to make development more equitable around the world, for every dollar that's spent there are $34 being spent on essentially doing things to increase productivity and reduce human labor. And so we've been looking here at um, the issue here of what's likely to happen with jobs. Should we really double down and say, how do we create the jobs and make sure they're available around the world and protect jobs against disruptions, technologies, and so forth? Or what would happen if they're truly, we do find we're successful in reducing jobs and eliminating jobs, because almost every company is looking to say, okay, how do I reduce my costs? For two reasons. Some people are saying, hey, I made this business because I want to do a service to people. I want to provide them the things they need or the things they want. And I to be able to provide those to the greatest number of people, I have to do it for the lowest possible cost because otherwise too many people can't afford the products and services that I'm trying to provide. Now, of course, some people are saying, hey, yeah, but at the same time, I want to make a lot of money. I want to reduce the cost to increase my profits. But it's both. If your costs are too high, you're not competitive, and you're not able to provide those goods and services. And I'm going down next week to Washington, D.C. I'll be speaking at a Model UN down there. And one of the topics that is or the themes that is in almost every one of the Model UNs is how do we reduce hunger in the world? And one of the things I've noticed is that the typically the young people, the first thing they look at is saying, we have to provide more food. We've got to find ways to provide more food, or we have to find a way to waste less food. The problem is there's just not enough food in the world. But in reality, we've got countries that are paying the farmers not to grow food. We have here entire complexes whose purpose is to destroy food, literally to destroy food. Why? So we can make sure that we keep the demand up. We don't have an oversupply. You know about the stories of the farmers in France that are spilling the milk in the on the streets, and we have so many farmers that are just saying, it's not worth it. I can't make enough money anymore. You need to keep out all the competition that is low. So the bottom line is the real problem of hunger in the world is not that there's not enough food. It's that there's not enough people who have the means to pay the going price for food. And so the in looking at these issues, we have to say, oh, we got to reduce the cost. But when we try to reduce the cost, we're taking the people whose livelihood is dependent on creating those goods and services, and we are maybe reducing that to the point where it's just not worth it. So this is the big challenge. Now, one of the things I've been doing is having a lot of chats with the different artificial intelligence chatbots about, okay, what's happening here? We've got this problem that we see that jobs are being lost due to AI. You probably heard that just the week or two ago, Amazon announced it's cutting 14,000 jobs to focus on AI. So they're replacing those with AI. But there's apparently a leak of an internal document saying their real goal is to reduce the employment by 30 thousand employees here relatively quickly. And there's even another one that says that the ultimate goal they're aiming at is to reduce their workforce by 75%. They have 300,000 employees and they want to reduce the workforce by 75%. Now, they offer and say, hey, we hope we're going to be hiring some additional people to support artificial intelligence. But there's no way they're going to be going out and hiring 200,000 people to support AI because what do the people do who support AI? Now, there's some that will just use it to say, "Oh, let me go and create my architectural diagrams or papers or help make presentations and so forth." But by and large, the big push is, hey, go help companies deploy AI, help companies automate their processes, help them build agents. And what that means is the people who go and learn that kind of AI are using that AI to help companies reduce their labor force. And so that got me into this discussion, the most recent of which I sent out with the invitation here, that just sort of described and said, okay, is that what's really happening? Are we reducing, are we saying, hey, a lot of jobs are going to go away. If you want to remain competitive, you need to learn this AI stuff so that when jobs get lost, you'll be the last one to lose your job. And you'll be able to maintain it. So a lot of the people who are studying AI are studying AI so that they will be the winner when the job losses begin. And so they want to show, hey, I can help you reduce your costs faster than the other guy because I learned all this AI stuff. So this is one area. Another area that got it that well, so I asked about that, and he came back and said, "Hey, don't worry about it. Look, we expect yes, AI is going to reduce some jobs, and it's going to reduce the need, but guess what? It's gonna open new opportunities." And so it'll create probably more jobs. And yes, we don't need to go and say, okay, because AI is going to do all the work of construction, so we can convert all those people into architects. Well, the world doesn't need everybody to be an architect. So I pointed that out to Gemini and said, well, don't worry, we're actually going to, as we increase productivity, we're not going to be producing the same amount. So it's not that we are going to lose people because if you increase productivity by the same demand, you need fewer people. But we shouldn't worry about that because we're going to increase the economy. More people will be able to afford more things so that we'll have more people needed to do the design and those kind of work simply because there's going to be more demand. And that got us into a discussion about, well, isn't AI going to do the new jobs just as good as the as it took over the other jobs? And they came back and said, well, yeah, but we can focus on things where AI can't replace humans and so forth. Anyway, so if you've read the paper, you see that as I asked questions about the responses it gave, it finally came to the conclusion here that there's not really going to be many jobs at all for especially for the average humans. Yes, can if, the superhumans, the humans that really became the masters of AI, yeah, there may be jobs for them, but what about the average person, the person that was the truck driver, the person that was the warehouse worker, the person that just had an everyday job? Is everybody gonna become an AI expert? And even if they do, is that just going to increase the competition among them? So, at any rate, that's the purpose of today is to find out, do we really believe that AI is going to be able to um, do everything humans can do? And is that likely to result in a dramatic decline in the percentage of jobs that are available at all for human workers? And if so, what does that mean? What is that going to mean for society? Where do we go? What can humans still do? And then it gets into, well, do we really need humans to do work? If AI and robots are capable of doing everything, do we really need the humans to have to? Given so many surveys that say up to 80% of workers hate their jobs, and they're just doing it because they have to survive. Is that really the kind of life we hope for people? Or what are those options? And so it got into the options, but then it came up and said it could be heaven on earth. We could be at a situation where AI, yeah, it provides everything that humans need, and so humans can focus on the things they really love and are passionate about, and because they're not dependent on what they do for their survival. But alternatively, that depends on the people who are the owners, the winners of the AI race. being willing to share. And if they're not willing to share, we get into an inequality catastrophic situation where a great share of the world population is in survival, having major problems with survival, and they become desperate. And the people who are the owners, the owner class of AI, robots, and wealth in general, it's not that they're necessarily bad people and they hate the rest of the population, but they become afraid. They become afraid that the people who are the losers of the AI race are going to rebel and are going to cause them damage or cause them to lose what they feel they've earned in building up their wealth. And that gets into the situation that, well, how could we do something to ensure a peaceful transition to a world where we share the benefits of AI and robots? And as a result, we've got this really beautiful world. How can we do that peacefully? How can we make sure that we're not going to have that violent revolution? Or that out of fear that the owner class just will take a preemptive strike against the masses of the population. And it talks about the danger because too many people, we know people are they don't like change. And so they keep hoping it's not going to be that bad. It's not going to be that bad. And we become like that frog in the water that's boiling, and they don't realize they're dying until they're dead. That it's very hard to get people to take action against something that might happen. And so that got us into that discussion. So that's what we want to talk about. And I long-winded intro into this, but the idea here is we want to really discuss why is it that likely that we're going to have that catastrophic loss of jobs, and in what time frame? Because even 20 years is like nothing. I don't know, yes, if you're 18 years old, 20 years is like an eternity. But those of you that I can see on the call, 20 years is no longer that big a deal. And if we think back 5 years, 5 years is when COVID started. 5 years is like it went like that. And so it's not going to be here that it happens in 2 to 3 years. But we may see if we see more layoffs like Microsoft and Amazon and others are starting, and the self-driving cars with the robo taxi model that's really moving along fast. Or if we look at China, which is as fast as they can, they're going to the lights out factories, to the so-called dark factories and distribution that are fully automated, and they're called lights out factories because there's no humans working there, so they don't need lights. And The writing's already on the wall. That is happening, and it's happening so fast. And once people start to believe, even if they still have a job, and even if things are still going okay, but if they believe that's about to end in 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years, they are already going to be losing faith. So that's the ultimate issue. What I'd like to do now is hear from you guys. Um, what are your thoughts on this topic? And if you think, well, don't worry about it because for this reason, these jobs are going to stay and those jobs are going to stay long term. We want to hear the scenario why you think that, and let's discuss it and see here, can we describe what the process is whereby those jobs might be disappearing, and what are maybe a possibility where we come to an agreement. No, we don't have to worry. Those jobs aren't going anywhere. So please, you guys, your turn. Yes,
Well,
that's it.
Bill, you brought up Amazon that they're going to be letting people go, and they already have. But it's a matter of frame of reference. 30 years ago, Amazon did not employ anybody.
Mm-hmm.
They started the company maybe about uh, in early 90s or late mid 90s, and they brought the business up to the point they had 300,000 people working there. So even if they let half of them go, still they are above where they were 30 years ago. So the point I'm trying to make is all of these things are relative as you see them. Um, the couple of places where robotic took a good hold of it was like um, automobile manufacturing, or even in surgery center. So where they have played a good part, um, there's a lot of good about that, and there's a lot of fault-free manufacturing, if you want to call that. So the AI is going to impact all those areas, but it's still the jury is out in terms of there are a lot of issues with AI still. The information it's putting out, it may not be. I mean, yeah, a lot of kids are writing their high school papers using AI and not learning. But other than that, I don't know. It still is too early for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the things I think you're 100% right. If we take a look at AI, in the sense of unstructured responses and unstructured answers, definitely it's not ready for prime time. But when we look at the evolution that's taking place, when you talked about car manufacturing, Hyundai is building a factory in Georgia. The right now Ford and General Motors, it takes about 31 or 32 people to produce a certain number of cars in a year. The Hyundai factory is designed to only require three people to do the same work that 30 are doing. The other thing here is um, we have to look at China. China is literally automating. If we see there every 3 seconds right now, they have a smartphone being created by Xiaomi. These are the most sophisticated smartphones, and it's not taking any humans at all. It's a dark factory. And they're doing the same thing. There's a car manufacturer in China that's doing the same thing. And China has declared it's their state goal is to eliminate all the need for humans working. Now, they have a situation where they almost need to do that because their population, their demographics, they don't have enough young people to do the work. So they're going to be okay. And I'm assuming their goal is that they've got a goal that they're going to be able to um, have some kind of a universal basic income or whatever to deal with that. But we have to be very careful not to go and look at today. Because if we look at 2 years ago, 2.5, almost 3 years ago now, that no, it's almost 3 years. Okay, that if anybody was generating pictures, they couldn't make pictures with people with 5 fingers. People had 7 fingers, 9 fingers, 2 fingers. It was crazy. The same thing applied. They couldn't manage to have text that was spelled correctly or readable. And today we can see here that we have accurate videos being created uh, um, with audio and so forth. And you've got now actual commercials. A lot of commercials are being created with the users. Another thing that's really important to understand is we take a look and say, uh, take a look at certain jobs. Look at these humans. These humans here, we can't match those right now with the technology that's there. But we're looking here at the top 5%, 10% of the humans that are doing that kind of work. But the average human, the question is, can the average human do that work? Because it's not going to help us if we have unemployment of even 20%. That's a catastrophic situation. We did not have that in the Great Depression of the 1930s. So we have to ask ourselves, how will AI displace? Because if the United States, for example, not today, but in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years, they have all of the production, of all the manufacturing, of everything. Because if you can do the most complicated ones for cars and distribution factories and or distribution deliveries and so forth, if you can fully automate that in dark factories, um, what are uh, what work are those people going to be doing? And so that's what we have to look at here. We have to be careful, and we have to look at three things. One is uh, we tend to look right now at a case where humans where we're making a lot of mistakes right now because we're saying here, oh, use a chatbot, use a large language model, and there's hallucinations and there's mistakes and things like this. But one of the things that we're seeing, those dark factories are not using really out of AI. What they're using AI to analyze the situation and create uh, uh, the the specifics. In other words, they're hard coding. In other words, they're working out and saying, okay, hey, this is the process we need, and so it's automating into hard coded if then else statements. In other words, they're saying, okay, we did the research, we understood that. Now, when we started with self-driving cars, those self-driving cars maybe only did 20, 30 automated steps initially. And then we quickly grew that into some more and some more. But more and more of the processes are identifying the scenarios, certain scenarios, and are defining what are the process answers that we want the AI to do, or we want the system to do. But it's not, we only have a small percent that is going out there and looking and saying, okay, well, what's going on? What would be the best answer? But more and more we're turning the unstructured data into structured data for a higher and higher percent of all of the things that are being automated. So in within 10, 20 years, most of the automation is not going to be AI guessing at what we want done, even if it's guessing accurate 90% of the time. That's not what's going to be happening. It's going to be happening to say, if this happens, you do that. You don't go, maybe you do this, and maybe you do that. That can come about for certain things, but most things are being hard coded automated. Alia.
Right, so if AI replaces all the jobs, okay,
Mhm.
and then most of humanity is starving to death, and there's a war, and then there's nuclear war, and the rich people kill everybody because they have all the weapons, and the rich people still have their factories and making lots of products at no cost. Who's going to buy their products?
The question is, do they need that? Are they saying, "Hey, look, I only make needed to make the stuff I want, make the stuff my wealthy friends want." But I want to be clear upon one thing here, that nuclear war is very, very unlikely that that's what's going to happen. If people are starting to lose jobs, and they start losing jobs more and more. The political side of the game is going to be having a tremendous pressure to come up with answers. It's not going to wait until we got 80% unemployment. When we start hitting 15, 30, 20% unemployment, the pressures are going to be there to come up with answers. How are we going to service the people? Initially, it's probably going to happen to help them survive, and initially people are going to believe that okay, we can provide them like a social security help or unemployment or poverty assistance in the hope that it's temporary. But then we start seeing it gets more and it becomes 25 and 30% and so forth. Um, and the pressure is going to increase to have to find ways to pay more and more people. Now, there's a couple of models that are being looked at. One is, for example, in Norway. And in Norway, we have these sovereign funds that from oil and so forth, that the Norwegian population ensures that, hey, everybody's got healthcare, everybody's got the basic needs that they want by having the government own and sharing the means of the resources that Norway has. Alaska has something similar that they have made it so that all of the license fees for oil and gas exploration in Canada, those all those revenues are shared so that the entire population, every single man, woman, and child in Alaska, they share the dividends of those benefits. So there's a lot of models, a lot of places that are trying stuff out like this, but nobody really has the experience yet, big time, because governments are still, oh well, let's keep doing yesterday. We know politicians and governments, they almost wait till the last minute. They try to keep doing whatever they were doing until all of a sudden they're forced to change. The danger here that was brought up in the paper was that if we get early on with where we're at that 20% unemployment or whatnot, and there's agreement made how to more equitably share the benefits of AI and robots and so forth, that we can come up with a peaceful transition. The problem is if they dawdle too long, if they just keep talking too long, and the polarization gets to be too big, now it's going to be very hard for those people to say, "Oh, yeah, you have to give up here most of what you have because you weren't sharing for a long time, and it's not going to help us anymore for you to share a little bit. We need you to give up your wealth and lifestyle now." So that there can be more equitable sharing. So if the wealthy at that stage, if the poor start to rebel to a certain degree, even if it's a small degree, if the wealthy become afraid, if they become afraid that the poor are going to attack them and destroy their lives, their lifestyle that they have, they are going to resist and they are going to fight. And as you pointed out, they by then are going to have all the means of power, not necessarily with something like nuclear warfare, but perhaps ways of poisoning or euthanizing certain areas of population so that the risk against them becomes smaller, and they might take that path. Um, Mark Cuban, who's one of these really famous billionaires in the world, he's been warning his fellow billionaires that, hey, we better be careful because they're going to come for us with pitchforks. And he's probably right. There are some wealthy people who see where this could lead, and they talk about coming to a future of abundance. You got people like Peter Diamandis, the founder of what is it? He's one of the founders of Singularity University, but he's the founders of the price competitions where they've offered like 15 million people prizes for who can come up with the best education tools for developing countries or all kinds of major world problems by offering huge prizes to see who can come up with these kinds of solutions. And he is continually saying how, hey, wait a minute, all of these developments that are taking place will eliminate the need to have humans have to work. And as long as we do share the benefits of the AI and robots and so forth, that can be a most beautiful world. But it's not going to happen if everybody believes, oh, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. We're still going to get jobs. We don't know how, but we just believe it'll happen. And what we need to do is start looking at any job, take any job you want, and then look and say, okay, what automation steps will take to to reduce the need for a high percentage of the people in the world for that job. Take any single job. The former CEO of Google, Schmidt, he described the example that he sees in the very near future. You'll have a developer, a real estate developer, and that real estate developer will tell AI, hey, go find me the best properties in a geographic area that could be developed into something very profitable. Go find the properties that would work good. Go negotiate the prices for me with the current owners. Go here and make the sale, develop the contracts, make the sale, then go out there and design the construction, the buildings that would make most sense on that particular property. It could be for an office building or it could be for just a house. Then go out there and hire all of the construction workers that would be needed to build those properties and go get all of the permits and all the drawings, the technical drawings and everything. Then go have all the contracts with the subcontractors and then supervise all the work and doing the development. And then go and design the marketing materials to market that finished product, finished building, and go find the buyers, sell the buyers, and deposit the money to my account. In other words, he described how the AI will do the entire thing. The only thing that happened to have is that to somebody say, go find a property and build it, arrange the building and sell it and market it or rent it out and make me a lot of money. But it wouldn't take hardly any human workers to do all of that, which today is huge numbers of people. And we can look also taking another look at the case of the automation for creating advertising. We already have fully automated development of advertising commercials that nobody has to go on location anymore. Nobody has to hire the actors. Nobody has to go and do the drawings and everything. They're able to just go and say, I need a commercial that's going to have this and this effect on the marketplace. And it goes and does that. How many people are going to be needed for developing films and developing advertisings and things like this in the near future? We can look at the jobs, each individual jobs, and say, how close are we getting to that point where the AI will do everything to design the house. Now, that's until it comes down to the point that, well, there's not going to be able to have anybody who can afford to buy any properties. So why am I going to make any properties like that? I'll make some super houses for the super wealthy. You know, when we look at it today, when we have people who, for them, $1 billion a year, that's just the interest that they get paid for some of their savings. They don't even have to work a lick to be able to increase their income by billions. And the issue that we have is how do we wake people up? How do we go and really have discussions about what the future is likely to be, and how do we see what the pros and cons going forward of that might be, and what can we do to try to influence things so that worst cases don't happen, that we find ways that the this evolution is going to result in something positive for everybody, which might happen if we do something, but is very unlikely to happen if we do nothing and just watch. And that is the concern. But I'm sure some of you, maybe I'd like to hear some of the others of you, your thoughts on how likely is it, what things do you see that are going to cause these kinds of developments on the by AI or by robots that's going to cause these things not to happen? So please, somebody, please.
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Yeah. Um, of course, I mean, from what we heard and what we are, um, I mean, knew about AI, what's going to happen and the development. I think every sector, every type of business, every type of requirement, you know, it have different impact. I mean, how AI will affect, this type of uh, line of business or line of requirement, as you were mentioning, um, I mean, it's not all the same because very difficult. I mean, I mentioned before also, I mean, AI, I mean, how far it will, I mean, inspire people, to go ahead and use AI or learn more about AI. Um, so I think it's in different areas, in different lines, it's completely different. If anybody has some other point, um, very difficult. I mean,
Mhm.
AI will affect either humanity, I mean, a human being, uh, the people, I mean, um, educational, humanitarian, health sector. I mean, all we can see in China what's happening, what what they develop, either the medical operation, handled by robot and so on. I mean, it's, I mean, sometimes I think it's very confused. I mean, where we are going on with AI.
Mhm.
It needs more time, maybe, to people be more attracted or more easy dealing with AI or get used or customized, to use AI.
Mhm.
I think it's not easy,
Yeah.
very
One
difficult.
One thing here that might be interesting is this last year, up until this last year, the feeling was, hey, people with university over their lifetime, they earn significantly more than people without that have just high school or didn't even have high school. But right now, we have an unemployment rate of 4% in the United States across the whole population.
Yeah.
But if we look at college graduates, the unemployment rate is now 5.8%.
Hmm.
In other words, we are starting to see the start that the unemployment is going to be much greater among people with university studies. The other thing is keep in mind that self-driving car, as I said in the beginning, it did a few things. And I speak because in my last job before I retired, the thing I did is I built ERP systems that automated entire companies. We looked here almost to be able to say, how can we eliminate humans in general? Okay, that's what we did, and we did it because our customers wanted to save money, and they wanted not only save money, but we went from being taking 3 days as one of the biggest uh, electronics distribution companies supporting thousands of retail outlets. And it was taking initially 3 days to process orders and credit checks and everything else, and arranging shipment and shipping and things like this, down to the point where anything that was ordered during business hours was in the warehouse on its way to being shipped within less than 1 hour. Okay, and that was 20 years ago. 20 years ago, I was doing
Wow.
that. So if we look at the self-driving cars, initially, as I said, it was very crude. It was just the ones, oh, there's something in front of the car, stop. Oh, something in front of the car, turn to the left, turn to the right. Very, very few actions that were suitable or that we had enough information on. And that number grew and grew, and we put more sensors around the cars, the vehicles,
Because
and we were able to recognize more and more situations. We were able to observe what drivers did and whether that was good or whether it was bad. And then we coded and said, and now we know what to do. In this case, if we came up with decision trees. Oh, there's something in front of us. We'll turn to the left. No, wait a minute. There's something there. We can't turn to the left, so turn to the right. So we put in all these nuances, and we put in more and more to where we now can identify thousands of scenarios, thousands of things that could happen, or where we check multiple levels of scenarios before we decide what actions to take. In the long term, in the paper, we had the discussion that at some point in the future we'll have identified tens and ten of thousands of scenarios that could happen, and the cars will have fewer and fewer things that it doesn't know what to do, even to the point that when space junk is crashing down from space, cars will know that, detect it, and be able to avoid it because it'll understand hundreds of thousands of scenarios. But those scenarios, it's not like it's going in and saying, okay, what could maybe, why don't we try this? Why don't we try that? No, but it's hard coding the experiences and what ifs of this happening and that happening to make the decisions. So that's what we're seeing with the automation of almost all factories. We start off automating all of the very routine stuffs where we know very definitively what needs to happen in that situation. And then we add more and more nuances and scenarios so that there are fewer and fewer exceptions because we've now understand those exceptions and we're able to automate those. And that is, I think, where we're going to see the loss of so many jobs. And yes, those jobs go away because all those routine, repetitive ones, but we're never going to find enough uh, new jobs that we don't know anything about to replace that the large percentage of humans that are no longer needed in those jobs that have been fully automated. Even to the point that I understand there's a McDonald's somewhere in the US now where every single thing done in that McDonald's store in the back is done by AI or robots.
There's
Uh,
unintended consequences
yeah.
of AI, which the rich might not have thought of. So, everybody in Pakistan has a device. So, an uneducated person in interior Punjab who's never been to school has the potential to learn everything in humanity. And potentially they could leapfrog and take over what the current rich own
No,
over time.
you're very likely to find situations here because AI is making it possible for people to learn anything.
Yeah.
But what's going to happen here as you go and make the opportunities for more and more people to learn, that on its own does not increase the number of people needed. So somebody went and learned new techniques. They displaced the guy who had the job today who they are now better than. So they can now offer an owner, hey, I can do more for you than the other guy. And as a result,
Well,
uh,
the human mind is very supple, and people may devise ways of, just beating the competition and getting to the top. You don't know.
no, but that's my point. My point is the whole thing of the education is about beating the guy next door so that you rise to the top. So they're all rising to the top, but it's not increasing the number of people needed at the top. So you're that we're
No,
going
but
to have this competition.
it may displace the people currently at the top.
Right, but many times the people on the top, we have to distinguish between the owners, the capital, and the productive people. It's
Yeah, it
likely
could
to increase.
displace both. It could displace both.
It could, and we have examples. There's a lot of examples of that where we'll get a churn and it will displace some of the people, but a lot of it here don't because they're not necessarily going to be in a position where they've got to fight because so much of the wealth exchange in the world takes place through inheritance and not through productivity or production. Dietmar, you've had your hand up for a while. You're muted, Dietmar.
Okay, you hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Very, very interesting discussion. So, what I'm thinking about, yes, AI is a great tool to learn things, but I think the things we can learn that are the things which are already in the AI. No, someone has had to put it in. It must be there before it comes into the AI. And learning is very important to do a job. But I think also important is to have the experience in the job. And this is not what is in the AI. I can theoretically be a super engineer, but I'm not able to build something which will fit in the real world.
Mhm.
You understand what I mean?
Yes,
So
yes. Yeah, and I think here though the thing we have to recognize is that more and more of the data is not having to be recorded by humans. We have more and more sensors, more and more devices all around the world that is expanding on the what ifs. I'm now able to detect this situation I didn't even know existed yesterday, but the sensors have now detected this nuanced situation or situation exists, and we took this action. Oh, that was a bad action. We took this action and we got a bad result. So the next time it happens, we tried a different action. Oh, that one worked. So that we're getting to the point where more and more all the scenarios are being discovered and shared. And one thing that's super important to learn or that we understand that there's no intelligence involved in artificial intelligence. It's not a question of humans versus intelligence versus machine intelligence. What it is, it's the knowledge and experiences of a single human or a small group of humans versus the collective recorded knowledge of all humanity, current and past. And with the added knowledge of knowing, because we're looking at hindsight, we're looking at what ideas and what actions led to the best outcomes, led to the best results. So as over time we learn or AI learns there's this nuanced situation. IBM Watson, the AI that beat Jeopardy around 10, 15 years ago, they switched over into the medical field. And what it does is they captured all the information about, for example, oncology, cancer, and so forth. And so people are able to come and they're able to capture from tests or from people describing their symptoms. And they do that for hundreds of thousands of people. And then they're able to detect, oh, what diagnoses turned out to be right and which ones turned out to be wrong. So that they're able to then say this combination of test results and symptom descriptions and so forth led to the most accurate diagnoses. But we only have a 70% or an 80% confidence level in that result because we don't know in this particular patient's case, they never described this symptom or they never had this test. So they were able to come out then and said, well, if this patient takes this additional test, the result of that will let us increase our confidence level from 70% to 85% with the result of this particular test. And if they had that other particular test together with this one, that will increase our confidence level to 89%, whatever. So what we're seeing is that every time they go and they say, okay, we think it's this based on the knowledge that we have, but if it turns out to be wrong, that's self-improving the model. And so they're getting accurate, more and more and more accurate in being able to diagnose the causes of their people's problems, and also being able to say this treatment. Okay, we recommend this treatment here we've got an 80% confidence level that this treatment will cure the issue. But when they go and find out, yeah, but it didn't. We thought it would, but it didn't. Why? And they're able to go and say, okay, because the observation while that treatment was going on detected something that we never took into consideration. We didn't know that was an issue. So that now adds to the body of knowledge to be able to come up with an accurate diagnosis. Also adds to the knowledge to be able to prescribe a particular treatment. And this is happening everywhere. That case in the medical, I think it's pretty much obvious that as long as we record and add to the body of knowledge of what's going on, so that we become better and better at predicting the issues, but we also become better and better in not needing as many people. Because one of the differences are if we decide, oh, let's train everybody to go and become an agent builder, to automate processes. And we say, fine, we're going to try to educate 10 million people to do that. We have to educate those 10 million people one by one. But if we come up there and use that process where it's self-identifying the issues and coming up with answers, and then we find out, oh, that answer worked. No, that answer didn't work. We're slowly building up. We only need to to have the understanding once, because then all AI that has access to that model, they all understand like that. So this means that the biological human, the problem is we've got to do one by one, whereas AI and robots only have to learn once and they all know it. Yes, Mark Henry, please.
Thank you. Bill, interesting discussion. I missed the last two meetings because the previous week I was in Madrid for meetings of the World Road Association, specifically the technical committee that looks into the transport agencies and looking at the transport agency of the future. And then last week I was in Seoul for the council meetings, and then the REEEE, which is kind of the regional transport grouping of ministers of Oceania.
Mhm.
And it's very interesting that this issue we're talking about was manifesting in multiple ways. In Madrid, I had long discussions with a gentleman from the Norway Transport Agency, and their concern is the speed at which AI is being integrated, because they're actually doing it. And this gentleman I was chatting with is kind of like the head of section. So he was kind of like, I think these guys are moving too fast. And I told him about something I tried to do as well sometime in 2024, where I had come up with an AI strategy for the road authority in Uganda, where I had decided that the focus is going to be on the preservation of jobs, and that would be my core governing objective. And everything we were going to do was about augmenting, so creating greater efficiencies, but preserving the jobs of people, because the jobs then lead to welfare. So we had this discussion, and it seems in Norway things are moving quite fast. But when I probably proposed a human-centric approach, it kind of got us to a way of closing the conversation and moving on with the other business of the day. Uh, but the thing that we both took away from that is the speed of the changes that are taking place. And so even in some of the reflections as you're discussing, Bill, we're talking about, yeah, in 5 years' time or in this kind of thing, we could be talking in 3 weeks' time. When you're talking about the thousands of people being laid off, I look at that not as looking at the company itself, Amazon, and trying to dissect it. I look at that as more like we would look at those as indicators. It's just one. Next, we're going to see governments do the same thing, and the rest, because it's about, are we looking to efficiencies, or are we looking to the welfare of human beings? And if we're looking to the welfare, then we're going slightly, I think, traditionally they used to call that socialist, or whatever it is. I did history a long time ago. But I think we probably the upcoming UN meeting would do well to reflect on it from these two perspectives, the greater efficiency versus the social good.
Yeah.
And for me, living in having lived more than half my life in uh, low and middle income countries, and some very poor countries, you see that the value of work, sometimes it's not even about, yes, we can pay you not to work, but people get a sense of purpose from having something to wake up to do. And a number of you might be retired. Fortunately, I see all of you are very active. But if you have any of your retired colleagues who have very healthy pensions, so they're not looking for anything, but I'm not too sure they're enjoying a good quality of life. You realize that sometimes you need to have something to wake up to do and say, this is what I have to do. So that's one thing that I thought I would just reflect on as we are building more cases. Um, Again, another issue with the Norway example was, I think they're already embarking, without stating it, maybe not to agitate their public, on designing a major bridge, and there's no human beings involved. And from what I got to know from my colleague, it's like, no, the safety of that bridge supersedes the one that's done by the most experienced human designers. So these are places where one would have thought, yes, it's a fairly protected niche area, because there's a lot of human judgment involved. Yes, the engineering is engineering, but there's a lot of human judgment. But when the systems have been trained to be good enough to mimic that kind of human judgment with no emotion, or I mean, with surgical precision, then I think it's a little bit concerning from the human perspective. From the social perspective, yes, we can have more services delivered at lower costs, and with less tax. So
Yeah.
it's worth noting also that one of the things I noted, the REEEE conference, they had an entire special session where they dedicated one day out of their 4-day program to look at autonomous construction. So looking at things right from design through to construction and decommissioning, and everything is autonomous. You probably just have one or two human beings, but everything is built around autonomous vehicles. And this is a major international meeting. It's held once every 4 years. So if they can have a session like this, it tells me that I think things are quite advanced, because then what is being discussed in the specialized meetings where you're getting experts in this subject matter discussing the future possibilities. It got me thinking that we are farther along the curve than we seem to know. And so that 5 year projection, I think, is you being close to Sunday and trying to have a lot of hope. But the reality might be a lot more sobering.
Yeah.
So I think my final thing, I've always wanted to look at this from the positive perspective. And I think I just want to say, fine, we're getting to a stage where we've got to realize that probably about 100 years ago in Uganda, if you wanted to get from, say, like when the British colonialists were around, they needed to have locals carrying them on their shoulders, or in some kind of hammock, because they couldn't walk the long distances. And now you've got cars and buses and planes and the rest. But life goes on. But the social contracts and the way we understand life and what it means to be alive is completely changed. So I think I look at this group here as kind of like an apex. I've listened to many of you, and I see your perspectives are both rich and well informed. I think maybe we need to also conjure ourselves into who are the team that are going to be looking at this problem and advising the masks and the rest of this world how to make this human centric. How can we put the human being, leave the human being in terms of the human dignity? We can take out the human labor and all this kind of thing, but how can we still preserve that element of human dignity that will make people's lives worth living, even if they're fed, even if they have money, but acknowledging that yes, cars came, planes came, computers came, and so soon dark factories and dark offices might be the order of the day.
Yeah,
Thanks all.
yes, you've touched on so many points here that are really important. One is the aspect of purpose, and I have seen here among relatives and friends of the family who retired maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago. And in the beginning, it was, oh, I'm going to go fishing or I'm going to go play golf every day now. Oh, it's going to be so beautiful. And they do that, and it's like the kid who can now eat ice cream every day of the week, and all of a sudden, ice cream is terrible. I'm so fed up with ice cream. And I saw most of these people within 6 months, they really became very depressed. And usually they died not too long. They were healthy when they retired, and within a year, maybe two, you just saw them. They lost any reason to get up in the morning, and it was no fun doing the things that they were thinking they were going to do every day of the year. And so that's very real. At the same time, we do know from the studies the percentage of people, as I say, who hate their jobs and are looking to retire or change, but have no choice. They can't afford to. They're dependent on the money. For example, if you love music, you always wanted to be a musician, but you never reached the point where you were good enough to quit your job and be a musician because you can't make enough money as a musician to live on. So you were not able to pursue your passion of being a musician because you had to go and do this job you hated just to get the money to be able to have the lifestyle that you're trying to get for you and your family. The promise that they're looking at is if AI and robots are providing all the necessities of life, now you can go and say, yeah, I'm going to be a musician. You know what? Not many people, may only be a few people who like what I do. And maybe they'll drop some coins if I go play on the street and drop some coins, or I can make some supplemental money. Not enough that I could live on, but as a sign of appreciation. When we had, let's say, porcelain factories making all of the dishes and things like this that people use to eat off of, and it was all handmade back 150 years ago, 200 years ago. And then factories started to make dishes and plates and glasses and things like this. The majority of the people said, "Oh, wow, now I can afford to have dishes. I couldn't afford to it when it was being handmade. They were each too expensive, but now I can afford to have those." But there was a lot of people that said, "Yeah, but you know what? Those machine-made ones can't match the handmade where it's unique." Or I even love the fault of the person who painted this porcelain. They made a slight mistake here, but that's what makes that have character, and I love it, and I'll pay extra for it. And I think here what the people that are pushing the AI in that direction of abundance are saying is, how beautiful would the world be if people could pursue those passions they have, and they're not dependent for their survival, so they have the time and they have the means to be able to pursue those opportunities. And that's what they're looking forward to, that they're saying is the great opportunity. Yeah, some people will use it to vegetate, some people will use it to go play golf every day, who knows. But the thing that we have to recognize, though, is uh, our current economic model in the world is, if we say, well, we're going to put the person in the middle, and this is what Society 5.0 out of Japan, that's what it's all about, is the person in the middle. But who's going to pay that? How are you going to stop the little startup over there saying, oh, you know what, that company, they've got 1,000 people doing that job. I can do it with 10, and we can do it equally or better. And so I'm now going to go and steal the customers away from that other guy. How are you going to stop that from happening if we allow competition? People will strive to be better than the next guy. As we said, education, most people go and they get an education so that they can become more competitive to get a well-paying job. And they're looking when they're doing their work to outcompete their colleague to get the promotion. And how are we going to stop that? Well, one thing that'll stop it is some people are going to go and they're going to learn how to leverage AI, and they're going to learn how to leverage AI so that they become more valuable to their company than the workers sitting next to them. And eventually here they'll say, look, you know what? Hey, boss, I can do double the work of one of those other workers there. You know, if you hire me, get twice the work done, and then you don't need that guy, so you can increase my salary. And that's going to happen because the next guy's going to come along and say, I found some new AI tools and I can now do the work of four people. And I don't know how do you not have that happening? How do you, if you take a look at companies, most companies, they've got permanent staff that are looking, how do I optimize the efficiency? How do I get better? How do I increase the productivity? How do I increase the quality of the product? How do I increase my marketing understanding so that more people will buy our products? I have better arguments on how to sell our products. And oh, I can leverage AI to help me come up with better arguments on why people should buy our product and not the competitor's product. And I don't know a way around that, but that's going to happen. And a lot of that's going to be automating those processes. About 4 or 5 years ago, I attended a Rotary conference, and the speaker was from the fifth or sixth largest hospital chain in the United States. They have hospitals all over the country. And at the time, he put a device on the table, and he said he estimated within 10 years they won't need human doctors. And yes, there are going to be people that say, I want a human doctor. I don't want an AI doctor, but studies also out of Japan are showing that even though people say that, if they don't know if they're talking to an AI or a human doctor, they prefer the AI doctor, and they find the AI doctors are more empathetic than the human doctors are. And we know empathy, some people have a lot of it, some people have none. They're just not empathetic type people. But the fact is that the studies are showing that the AI is outperforming in empathy, outperforming in emotional intelligence, being able to understand why humans are thinking what they're thinking and what's bothering them, and that's why we see that AI has beaten the world poker champions in poker, which is very much about reading the motives and the actions of the other players. Okay, so anyway, Sid, yes, you wanted to add something here.
Well, I have faith in human ingenuity, and the AI, ChatGPT is not the start of the AI. AI has been around for a very, very long time, and if we are look, we it seems like our discussion is based on from the lens, from the U.S. lens that we are looking through. But if we look at things from the global lens, we're still dealing with some basic problems in the world, like food distribution, potable water, and things of that nature that we need to work on. And a lot of the world is not worried about the automatic driverless cars. They just worried about getting the next meal. So I think it will take a long time before we worry about losing our jobs. And still, in the next 20 years, the world will add another billion people. So don't forget that. So uh, those are some of the issues that we need to keep in mind. And I don't think AI is going to put us out of work in near future or for any future at all. They will be creating a lot more jobs in a lot of different unique ways.
Yeah, but give
That's
me an
it.
example because I'd like to. What I've been trying to do is look here and see job by job by job. What are the steps that are involved? As I said, I've taken entire companies, identified all the jobs there, and I've automated the process to eliminate the need for humans in those jobs. That was my job in the past, and it's not that hard. Believe it or not, it's relatively easy. And once you do, you force your competition. They have to do the same, or they lose market share very, very quickly. And by the way, I mentioned about these big grain silos and operations where they are destroying food. That's taking place in one of the largest developing countries in the world, that they are destroying the food so that the farmers will make enough money that it's worth their while, even though that means increasing starvation. In other words, the people who are trying to go and make sure that the farmers get enough, that's more important right now than keeping people alive from starvation.
Where is
Uh,
that, Bill?
it actually was in India.
Oh,
But I'm sure we can look at most parts of the world, almost every country, the United States and everything. The agriculture is a protected industry, and as part of protecting that industry is making sure that your farmers don't go out of business. And if they don't make enough money, they go out of business. And so if you've got a big chunk of your population that cannot afford to pay the going rate for food, you have a choice. You either force the food costs low enough, which puts the farmers at risk, or you let people starve. And that's been the case for a long, long time. And this is why you see agriculture as one of the first areas of protectionism. But we see the problem of what you happen in the United States right now. We have, first of all, through the tariffs that were put on China, China stopped buying the soybeans from the US. The US farmers are hurting really, really bad. They haven't hardly sold any of their crops this year. And they're very much based on international sale of food production. What happened is China turned to Brazil and Argentina, and then so they were buying from Argentina, but the beef industry in Argentina got into trouble. So the U.S. went down there and said, "Hey, Argentina beef industry, come, we'll take your beef to help you out, so your political structure doesn't get in trouble." Then that destroyed the market for the American beef farmers, and so we run into this vicious circle here when you're trying to figure out how to manipulate that in a capitalistic environment where people are investing. Now, the funny thing about this, or not funny thing, but the thing that's important to note, China has a policy right now to automate their entire agricultural industry. That's everything from preparing the land, planting the seeds with fully automated driverless tractors. And that's not just China. And I saw a report in Brazil. Some of the areas where they've cleared the rainforest, they have huge land areas, and they have these gangs of fully automated tractors, no drivers, that are planting the ground, doing the harvest. There are now harvesting machines that can harvest literally every kind of agricultural plant that you can imagine, even grapes. They're able to automate the planting. They're able to do it very efficiently, where the tractors can drive over and only pick the plants that are ready for harvesting now and leave the others alone, and come back in a second pass later to make sure they don't waste any of the materials. But China's going a step further on that even. Elon Musk's brother is investing very heavily in agricultural production in these so-called vertical farms, where they're taking high-rise office buildings, and they're totally automating so that it's like um, a assembly line where they plant the seeds in a dirtless environment on one end of this moving cycle. It will slowly move across that floor. By the time it gets to the other end, it's been cared for all along the way, and the lighting is adjusted and everything. By the time it gets to the other end, it's automatically harvested. There's robots there that harvest it, and then they package it all and doing this, and they're doing it in cities. In fact, I think there's a big one in Brooklyn, New York. But China now has picked up on that and is going after it big time. They want to be able to go and fully automate the agricultural production process from seed to market. And this is just another type of lights out, if you would, except it's lights on because they need the energy to promote. But they're doing it with renewable energy too. That's the other thing that they're doing with this. So again, we have to look at almost everything that human activity is. And yes, will some humans go and find something here to be that's very valuable to do? Yes. But will we do it in sufficient numbers to offset all the agriculture workers, all the factory workers, all the distribution workers, all the medical workers, all the office workers? Or are we only going to be able to provide a few people, and that happens to be their passion to want to come up and have new ideas? But what do we do with the masses? And if we don't provide them with some means of survival, what is the potential dangers on that? Yes, Kurt.
Sounds like you've asked a question that you haven't asked AI.
No, I did. Actually, that was the paper
I would see that this is a crazy thing because I have so many questions about AI and so on that
yeah,
use for peacemaking and everything.
yeah.
And the time seems to be running around having to do other things around my house or the community because I'm also involved in the neighborhood council and so on and so forth. So I'd love some more direct advice sometimes, or I got to get connected with you a lot more. That's for sure.
Well, you know, we've had many of our sessions, we've talked about the things you can do with AI. We've talked about how you can really learn stuff and knowledge and how AI can help you do things. And we haven't even gotten into the generative AI that has to do with creating videos and creating all the materials like that. We've been focused on what you can do to gain knowledge, to gain abilities for yourself. But there in parallel, there's so much happening with the agent building. If we look at the last couple of weeks, let's say just since the beginning of October, and take a look at how many new tools have come along to create agents that will automate processes. And the big one that everybody's focusing on that's going to be super important for us is how many people are saying, okay, I'm gonna automate the process of automating processes. In other words, I'm going to automate the systems analyst job. I'm going to automate the programmer designer's job. Okay, now when I worked, I first half of my career was in Germany, and one of the things that I was involved with was something called orgware. And orgware was about developing methodologies for organizing organizations and developing information systems and tools to help run organizations. And we wrote a number of books on that. I don't know if you can see at the top of my shelf behind my head there. You see 3 books labeled orgware at the top there that come out of that time. But right now, that's what people are focused on. They're focusing on, okay, let me define what are the steps that you would go through to figure out what's needed to automate a process. If I can define the steps, because I'm teaching you, and I used to teach at Purdue University, data management was what I taught, but it was part of our a computer technology program on data processing and how to develop automated systems. And if I can define the steps that you go through to analyze what is the goal and what is the tasks needed to achieve a goal in a function, if I can define and teach that to a human, I can teach that to an AI. I can tell the AI, hey, this is what you I want you to do. And I can tell the AI, if you run into a bug, if you run into a problem, this is how you detect what the problem is. This is how you go about fixing it. And this is what everybody is working on now, the people behind the scenes, not necessarily all the users, is how do I automate the process of automating processes? And how do I go, for example, on AI and detect the deficiencies that exist currently in the AI? If I can define how you identify they exist and what you should do if you identify a deficiency, I can make self-improving AI. And that has already started. We have several examples now
Bill,
where,
Bill, real quickly, if you don't mind me
yeah,
interrupting again.
go ahead. No.
The real point actually is to be able to, what kind of a society are we going to have is one of the questions that was asked a bit earlier. The man from Norway or wherever he's from, he seems to be gallivanting around. I love doing that too when I got a chance. But again, the society has to change for humanity to thrive.
Mhm.
Now, we may not because of the way AI can be the dystopian thing, and I'm not looking ever at that. Because why look at the dark side when we can actually create the good side? And all it takes is because of the focus that we have. Should we change our focus? What happens? We get a man elected to America who has done some things that were very un American. And why is it that he got elected that way? How is it that that could happen? Well, there's a lot of things that he did to get all the attention, people talking about him, talking about him, talking. They're still talking about the dude. They spend hours on the TV and so on. And instead of doing something that allows us to be able to create that which we want, we're not focused on getting to the moon like JFK asked us to do. So many people, only how many, maybe 100,000 or so, were really focused on getting to the moon. And what happened? And within the 10 years, we did it. But that's the focus that humanity can bring. And that focus is going to create what we are focused upon. If we get distracted and say, I'm going to create the dystopia, they got their dystopia because they focused on it. They had their plan for 2025 and they created it. So here we are. And we are the geniuses. I'm not including me on this, so I'll include all the rest of you because I just get to hang out with you guys and appreciate it. But we are the people that are looking for the future that we want to have. And this is what we futurists are all about.
Thank you, Kurt. You hit.
And another point, actually, if we have so many people on board here right now, and I'd love to be able to hear Ditmar or somebody else, and then you can give your incredible spiel if you don't mind. If somebody would like to raise their hand and so on and so forth. Thanks.
I just want though before Kurt, because I want to tie into what you just said. This whole meeting really is about the opportunity that the AI is creating, the opportunity for us, the need actually to say, what do we have to do to arrive at the world we want and to avoid the dystopia that we don't want? And we have to believe we can do something about it. So many people say, what can I do about it? I can't do anything about that. But if nobody tries, then we're going to get whatever happens. So the idea here is we're talking about this not to scare everybody, well, to scare everybody a little bit, because we just can't go and be passive and let things happen. But we got to be realistic in looking at what are the potential dangers. It's like that weatherman there that's the meteorologist that is saying, hey, there's a hurricane and this is the likely path. So if you're in that path, you better, prepare yourself against floods or whatever. What we're trying to do is make people aware of what could be the downside here, and how do we make sure we don't get that worst downside. Rotary
Well,
is one.
I'd like you to be able to do something about. I just toured through Altadena.
Mhm.
Altadena is a wasted community because of the fires.
Yeah.
I also have been through the Malibu fires and Pacific Palisades fire. I mean, we've had fire on our property big time and so on. Those things, we have the way to easily build differently. We have the way to be able to build structurally differently. Structurally is the important thing because fires get caught in square things and buff it against the angles and so on and so forth. We're not building with the kind of materials that we could easily build with that are safe for everybody and so cheap and rapid to build. I worked with a bit of things called the SCIP technology, structurally insulated concrete panels. And that can withstand hurricane force winds, earthquakes. And yet it doesn't happen all over the world. And we can use, instead of regular concrete, it can be hempcrete, bamboocrete, and so on.
Kurt, go to China and see what looks like relatively modern high-rise apartment buildings being torn down so that they can rebuild them with those kinds of thoughts in mind. It is mind-boggling if you just take the train, to just see entire blocks and blocks of buildings that are less than 40 years old, which here in the US would look pretty new, being torn down to be rebuilt, to be more eco-friendly, to have a null, zero energy footprint, so they're doing exactly what you're talking about. It's very impressive. But the issue that we have to face is we got to talk about these things, because there's a number of people on the call here right now who have said, well, I really don't think here that it's going to replace humans for this or that. And I think one of the things we can't afford is we can't afford to say, think positive. The worst won't happen. We saw in the 1930s, there was a lot of people in Germany who said, how bad can it be? We just have to wait for the
Yeah.
next election.
Yeah.
We like they say, you want to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And in this particular case, if we do get into a situation where the wealthy now own everything, 3-4% of the population, the rest own nothing and are starving and dying and are desperate, we have the ingredients for a very, very violent revolution. But also we have the means through AI and robots for mass destruction, targeted mass destruction. We saw here in wars up through the early 20th century that the kings and czars and whatnot were still dependent on human armies doing their bidding, and the human armies had that capability to say no. And but AI and robots probably are not going to be saying no. So those are things that we've got to talk about. And so when we talk about the jobs and we talk about, no, don't worry, the human jobs are safe. I really want to look into and say, okay, let's look at that job. Let's break down what the tasks are and figure out, could I automate that? And if I could automate that, what is the reason why the human's going to keep that job? Because even if I just automate it with something that's doing the work at the same pace of the human, but it's doing it 24 hours a day, whereas the humans can only do it 8 hours a day. And if we do something that improves the productivity of a human, so that human can now do the work of 4 people, 5 people, do we need the other 3 or 4 people that it replaced? So the total number of people that we humans that we need becomes less. So we better have something here that if we're going to leave it so that humans are dependent on being able to sell their labor to have income to survive, there's got to be demand for that labor. And we see, for example, in developing countries where we said, oh, let's increase the number of university graduates. That has not improved the number of university graduates that could find meaningful employment. We
Yeah.
have some of the highest unemployment of university graduates in the world are in developing countries that sorely need those skills, but we didn't increase the per capita GDP of the country.
Yeah.
So we didn't increase the percentage of people who can afford to pay for the services of those people that got the education. So they need to migrate to marketplaces that can afford to pay for their services. Nigel, did you want to add something here?
Um, yes, Bill. You see, we are always talking about mainly about the positive side of AI and what I mean AI is helping. I mean the global. I mean to progress or whatever it is. I mean, there's 2 points. From my point of view, I think also. I mean, education is very important. I mean, student either university of are less reading than doing anything else. They are depending on the before on the Google, now on AI and GBIT. I mean, all these things. I mean, in Sweden, the government uh, stop or forbidden, not allowing the student to take laptops or to use any technology things to go. So what is behind it? I mean, we don't want the human, I mean, the new generation, I mean, to learn more, to be educated more, to read. I mean, reading is very important, very, very important in order to improve, to progress our societies. If uh, if less student, I mean, to learn more, just to depend on the technology, on AI, what is the future? This one side. The second side, I mean, AI or this, I mean, the big, big, big groups, worldwide, who have the money, I don't know. I think how many people they want to kill or they want to reduce worldwide. I mean, in order to, as you said, unemployment. So what to do? Let's get rid of so many millions. Okay, all the conflicts worldwide. I mean, in the Middle East, in the South America, in Africa, everywhere, how many every day people has been killed and murdered? I mean, as you said now before about the wars. I mean, where we are going? I mean, there's positive, there's negative, but I think the negative is very bad for the humanity also. These two things very important: education and wars and the people who are being killed. This will help AI to improve, to help. What's behind it? I don't understand.
Education is very interesting because that was the main focus of our Rotary Club here prior to COVID. Prior to COVID here, and we still have on our books about half, almost a dozen initiatives that are primarily aimed at education. But one of the things when we look at current education and the impact of AI, we have to realize that our education system is totally flawed. One of the reasons why schools are saying no, don't allow them to use AI is because teachers in a teacher-driven system, it's more about control over what the students are doing than it's about learning, about helping students learn. And if students instead of going and making sure students are knowledgeable, they're more about controlling the things that students do. So they assign tasks and they check for the tasks. But whether you went and talked to a human librarian or you went and talked to AI to get all the materials together for your report, and whether you used a word processor or an old-fashioned typewriter, that doesn't say whether you really have learned and mastered the materials. But that is also changing. We just have to look at Alpha School, which is spreading like wildfire, which is they've replaced all the human teachers with AI teachers. It's kindergarten through 12th grade. And the result is that school now only teaches 2 hours a day. In 2 hours a day, they're able to get across all the academic knowledge. And those students from that school have jumped into the top 1% in terms of knowledge of all schools in the United States. Now, what they did, as I said, they replaced the human teachers, yes, for instruction and for assessment. But what those human teachers have become are mentor coaches. So those human teachers, it's like supporting the soccer team or the track team in the school, where that coach, their purpose is to help each athlete rise to their maximum potential. And that's what those mentor coaches do in education. But most schools are afraid to change to that because they are used to being able to manage the teachers. And so the students get lost in the most part. There's some Montessori and some Waldorf schools that are different, but this is going to change. We're seeing it happening so fast now because AI has the capability to personalize learning and to focus on your ability to learn. And there's the recognition there that we have to move away from a just-in-time education model where we teach you all kinds of stuff just in case maybe we have to move away from the just in case, where we teach you all kinds of stuff just in case maybe at some point in your life you might need it, and move on to just in time, where we've taught people how to be learners, effective learners, and giving them the confidence that they can learn anything they need to learn at any time. And that movement is going on there. But one of the issues is going to be, okay, why do I learn something? In other words, the reason for learning starts to become paramount, especially when we talk to higher education. If there are no jobs, and right now 80% of students in the United States, they go to university to enhance their career opportunities. And if those career opportunities are not there, will people continue to go? And I saw at I think it was a World Economic Forum session a couple of years ago. I think it was the presidents of Harvard and MIT, and I think those were the two schools sitting next to one another that both more or less agreed that the education model of universities would probably not survive the next 5 to 10 years. And because it will be so easy for anybody to learn anything, knowledge will be free, and the tools will just make that available. Yes, Joan, welcome. Yes.
Hi everyone. Sorry, I'm late. Today seems to be a busy day, but last night Jays didn't win, so it's anyway. So I read. Sorry, I missed. So if I take this out of context, forgive me, everybody. So I read your document that you sent, the link, the Google Doc. Very interesting, especially with the commentary. I suppose you talked about that earlier. Um, as I was listening to you, I was thinking that one of the things that we seem to miss when we talk, and probably me more than anybody else, um, how the world is going to change. And that when most people went to learn something, they went because one, there were jobs available or it's of interest to them, so they wanted to be better, etc. But doesn't AI give us an opportunity to become more explorative as well to things that we may not have thought we would have liked, but this gives us it's a great, to me anyway, it would be a great opportunity to say, geez, I always wondered about that, and being able to do it. So it's a great, not just learning experience, but research and actually trying something. So it's actually a positive too.
Oh, yeah, for that opportunity will be very real. But we're Rotary Club, so let's just focus for a moment on Rotary, and especially, we talk about how can we use AI to enhance the projects that Rotary does. But let's stop and
Okay.
think about it. Rotary does about 1 million projects every decade, somewheres around the world. One of the things that I've been at all the Rotary World conferences since Toronto, with the exception of Melbourne. And I ask here to those I meet, well, given all the work we do, what world problems are closer to resolution today due to all the things that we've done in Rotary over the last several decades? And the only thing anybody ever mentions to me is polio. And I say, well, wait a minute. Polio represents some fraction of 1% of world problems. What have we done with regards to world hunger? Has the amount of world hunger been reduced significantly because of the actions of Rotary? If we look at the global scale, let's say based on World Bank statistics, or even if we look at it locally, when I attend a Zone Institute or a Pets Pels now conference, and people stand up and say, we collect clothing for the homeless in the winter. We go and help the food banks. We go and we provide tutoring in the school. And I'll ask and say, oh, okay, you do all this for the homeless. But how much have you reduced homeless in your community over these last couple of decades? Or I'll ask, oh, you're doing all the tutoring. By how much have you reduced the percentage of students in your schools that are not at grade level? And they come back to me and I go, huh? We don't do things like that. And the issue really is when we look here at AI and the opportunities of AI, in a way, we've got to look at our goals and say, what is our goal? Because otherwise people go and say, help me be more competitive. What does that mean? That means I don't want me to be the one that starves. Let it be my neighbor that starves. Okay.
So Bill, in speaking about Rotary, sorry to interrupt, um, isn't it like they promote service, right?
Mhm.
But when people go out and do service, it's because the club is about service and people want to feel good. So it's not necessarily about the community. Sure, there's a need, but they're satisfying the club and satisfying themselves.
Yes. And that conflicts with the concept of service above self.
Right,
So
right.
service above self, and that's one of the things in our manifesto of our club that we said, what is the greatest service that we can be to our community, we have to go and look at how do we protect our community from the most severe and potentially existential problems, and not do the things we like doing, but doing the things that are most important and to our for our community.
Right.
And this is what I'm hoping that we're looking at here when we look at regards to AI. We don't just say, "Hey, this is something we can do." We don't look at is let's focus on the things that we're able to do. We need to focus more on the things that are needed, and then figure out how do we do them.
So, but when a service club like Rotary, and I'm picking on Rotary because this is a Rotary call, right? But many service clubs do it, many volunteer organizations do it. They have a mandate, and people go out to satisfy the mandate. And so when they collect their datas or success stories, it's a club story. So we did 10 projects in the community for this mandate. We did, so the data collection is about again, the club, because they follow the golden rule, which to me, the golden rule, I know always sounds good, but it's bad because it says do unto others as you'd like them do unto you. Well, if you haven't found out what somebody like to, you are a different person than the person you're doing it to. So you need to find out what they want, not what you want, right? That's giving.
Yeah.
That's the
So,
platinum rule.
sorry? Exactly.
That's the platinum rule.
I follow the platinum rule. That's what I do. I
Yes.
ask, what do you want? And if that's what they want, that's what we do, you
Or
know?
is it want or need? Because a lot of times people's wants are not necessarily what
It
they
depends
need.
on your services or your
Right.
whatever
Yeah.
that, right?
But
So anyway.
the thing about it is, one of the things in deep, I'll come to you in a second. I did an analysis here as when did Rotary start to really lose membership and lose influence? And it really happened, and I think I published a paper and sent to some of you, showing how World War II disrupted the lives of a great share of the world population, especially the developed world population. And in particularly North America, it resulted in 1 out of every 5 Americans moving across a state line, either to join the military or join the defense industry. And the defense industry moved people that might have been in small local employment, making things locally into large mass production facilities, where everything became about how do you optimize efficiency and productivity, because the idea is you have to outproduce your enemies. And so everybody got in these jobs and learned how to pursue efficiency and how to pursue productivity. And that applied to the people that were working in these mass production factories to build planes and tanks and whatever, but also happened to the people serving overseas that had to figure out the logistics of how to get materials and food and everything to all the troops, no matter where they were. And so at the end of the war, you had all this expertise. And in North America, you had all the factory production facilities that were still existing, whereas in most of Europe and big chunks of Asia, they had been destroyed. So in the United States, things moved quickly over into consumer goods. But the
Just one
mindset,
quick thing before you go to Detmar. The golden rule I just said, but the platinum rule is do unto others as they would like
yes,
to be done unto
right,
them. Just to
exactly.
clarify.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the key thing here was that with all that disruption and people moving into large scale production and so forth, up until World War II, the power in the community were the biggest business people in the community. They really ran the community. The politicians might have been elected and you might have had a town council, but the people that really got things done and made things happen were the main business owners. And so the Rotary clubs, that's why they had the rule, only 1 or 2 people per profession. So they would have the top people in every profession in the community doing that. That was what the Rotary Club was. And during World War II, where they started to realize that, oh wow, the what happens halfway around the world is very impactful for us. That's what got Rotarians starting to talk about the need for a global organization to avoid future wars. And this is what led to really the Rotarians pushing the idea of creating the United Nations and being called upon to really support the writing of the Charter of the United Nations. And it was actually the groundworks for UNESCO were set from a Rotary meeting that took place in the UK. Because Rotarians, these movers and shakers in the community, all got shook up because in the United States because of the war, and their paths of power in the community were disrupted, and all of a sudden they're all thinking much larger than the community. The Rotarians lost interest in the community. It wasn't big enough anymore for them. They now wanted to go after things on a national scale or an international scale, or the corporations that they were working with were no longer community-based organizations. They were now large conglomerates and corporations. And so the movers and shakers started moving away from Rotary. And Rotary then said, what are we going to do about this? And that's when they started to let in just everyday people who were interested in service. And they started to grow their membership from that side. And the more they grew their membership from people who just wanted to do good, they chased away the people that wanted to be the movers and shakers, the people that were organizing the policies of the community and organizing the development paths of the community and the strategies. That's what we had up until the 50s and early 60s, where Rotary were the brokers, the power brokers and the strategists of the communities. And now they moved away into business, and they moved away into state and national politics. And the communities became more like what the Lions were, where it was primarily people that just wanted to do some good and help their neighbor, kind-hearted people. And that has been started this decline where more and more people in the community no longer saw any differentiation for Rotary. It was no longer the place. If you wanted to be part of the central core of the power brokers in the community, you had to be in Rotary. So Rotary was very, very special. And it's very interesting because now there's this recognition of the need if Rotary wants to make a difference. And at the UN, I can tell you over years of attending and being at the Rotary at the UN 3 days a week, I never saw a representative of Rotary at the UN. Not in one of the official representatives. I saw Rotarians there, very interested, but nothing from Rotary. And the Rotary Day at the UN, the people that attended that from the UN were nowhere near anybody of any significant importance at the UN. So, and we see the World Economic Forum and all these things that are taking place are no longer the key body. But if we want to get back to where being a Rotarian is like, that's super important, and we really get the movers and shakers of the world back in doing that, we now have to be two paths. We need to be the service of doing kind things for the people in need, but which is focused mostly on helping the victims after the fact of issues, and being the people who are working to solve the problems and avoid the need from coming into existence and coming up with strategic solutions to world problems. And then we can restore so that the media, I keep looking, I saw in Germany one evening, ARD or the ARD or the second TV reporting when we had that big refugee crisis in Europe, where there was somebody from Doctors Without Borders. They were reporting they could never do what they do if it wasn't for Rotary. And I walked the streets in Munich, like I did here in some communities in the US, just asking people, what do you know about Rotary? What do you think about Rotary? And people were very aware and very interested in what Rotary was doing. And I attended meetings there, and there were top executives from BMW, from Siemens, and these corporations there. You would never find that in the meetings here in the US anymore. So we have the opportunity, the world need is there from the UN and from Rotary, and we have the ability to step up and say, yeah, that's what our communities needed. And we're about service above self. So we've got to start looking, how do we make the difference that the world needs and not just settle for what we think we can do. And anyway, I'll
Dietmar.
get off the soapbox on this. Dietmar, you've been,
Bill, my
yeah,
apology. I have to leave to attend another
yeah.
meeting. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse
Thank you
me.
for being present here.
Pleasure.
Nijad, you get to go
Yes,
with a salute. This is the
yes,
peacemaker salute.
That's the
Zoom in peace. We
peacemaker
throw the
salute.
yes,
love out to the world, and it
yes,
creates peace. It's the only force that
yes.
creates peace.
Yeah.
Peacemaker, please.
Yes.
God bless you all. Good
Yes.
evening.
Thank
Thank
Same
you
to
very
you.
much. Thank you.
Dietmar,
Assalamu alaikum.
you wanted
Okay.
to add something.
Yes, I want to come back to what we are just talking about, service. And yes, maybe clubs are doing things they want to do, they think these are needed uh, because they can do it. But I think on the other hand, it's also like that when a club collects clothes for the homeless. Okay, they may not solve the problem of homeless, but ask the homeless after they got the clothes, how are they feeling now? They will be happy. And this is also a very important point. And another thing I want to mention is we have in Rotary the community assessment. I think this is a great thing for global grants, and this is the same in a larger scale, in an international scale. It's not what we are thinking people, let's say in India, Africa, need. So we have a combination there of two clubs. This is a system of global grants. We have a host club and an international club. And before starting a project or realizing a project, it's necessary to do the community assessment just to know what really is needed and not what maybe the international club may think what is needed. And things this we should not forget. Maybe we should more use the tool of community assessment also for local projects.
It's very interesting. Thank you, Dietmar, on that. I did an assessment a number of years ago after I joined Rotary, and I joined Rotary looking to make a difference in the world. And I had been used to doing some volunteer projects where I was able to mobilize literally hundreds of thousands of people. And so I'm looking and saying, okay, I want to make that kind of difference again. I had done that for some years and then had to go back to work, and then I got to a position where financially I was able to retire and focus again on wanting to make a difference. And so that I joined Rotary because I got invited to a meeting where they talked about Polio Plus and they talked about what was done in Haiti. And I said, these people understand scale. For the following 4 months after that, I attended every single weekly meeting, and they didn't have one more talk about any kind of projects. They had some people talk about how do you prepare your garden for the spring. They had somebody talking about how you can do meditation and go and things like that, but nothing about talking about any particular needs. And then the district governor came by and said, okay, we're about to lose the district because our membership has fallen below 1,100 members in the district. And one of our members got up and said, yeah, we just a few years ago, 10 years prior, there was over 125 members in that club. And I was the newest member. I was member 36. And that member that had stood up was over 90 years old. And I began to say, I don't know if I'm going to find people here that are really focused on making a difference. And I went to a board meeting. I asked about the projects they were doing, and nobody could tell me. They said, well, we'll try to find out before the next meeting, because they couldn't even find a list of projects they were talking about fundraising. That was the kind of projects they were talking about. They weren't talking about any projects of actually doing something. So I was thinking of quitting, but before that, I said, let me go to rotary.org. I went there, I clicked on everything that's clickable. And then I went to YouTube and I looked for speeches by Rotarians. And there's quite a number out there. Then I went and found some forums on LinkedIn and also just some other forum channels of Rotarians, Rotarian clubs. And I started to contact Rotarians around the world and talking to them on what they thought. My conclusion was that Rotary is uh, it's something worth fighting for. Not the Rotary that necessarily is, but the Rotary that was and could be. And I decided I want to find out. So I got on a plane and I visited, well, first I visited about a dozen clubs in my district, and they were all pretty much like my club, not really doing much of anything and complaining about the people not being interested. I also went to a street fair and got in the middle of the main intersection and just asked all the passerbyers what they knew and thought of Rotary, and wasn't much. Then I got on a plane and I visited more than 20 Rotary clubs in 3 different countries. I wanted to see if there was a difference and what made the difference between clubs that were successful and clubs that were not. That included visiting more than half the clubs in the area of Bavaria, southern Bavaria, also in Austria and Hungary. And what I found was the clubs there were totally different. The meetings were not just an hour and a half. They were not lunch where everybody's watching their clock, watch for the last 15 minutes saying, when can I leave? But they actually had project managers get up and describe what was going on in their clubs. The clubs met at 8 o'clock at night, typically. And the focus was on projects and the table chatter. In the US, the clubs that I visited, the table chatter was, what's your vacation plans? How's your tennis game going? What are your kids doing? And so forth. The table chatter in the clubs that I visited in Europe were very much about what our world needs, what were projects, and so forth. And the When the meeting ended after 2 hours, as I say, club meetings in the US are typically an hour and 15 minutes. When the club meeting that started at 8 o'clock at night, which meant people had to go home and drive back into the city, ended around 10 o'clock, people didn't leave. They just moved to the lounge area and kept talking. Again, about what they heard in the projects and so forth. Very, very different. So the thing that I realized, and then I got involved with the UN, and because of that, realizing we have some 10 million NGOs in the world. When I said Rotary does about 1 million projects a decade, the collective of NGOs does more than 1 million projects a year, or governments and NGOs around the world. But again, if we look at World Bank statistics, we're not seeing any results. I became the vice chair of the NGO Committee for Education, Learning, and Literacy at the UN, and was studying what was happening around the world. And we see the exact same thing, that almost all the projects are focused on the consequences of the problems, the victims of the hurricanes, of the wars, and all the other things, not preventing them. And we started to look why. And the first step we said, nobody's set as their goal to go and reduce the world need for hunger or whatever. They are saying, I'll go into this community, I'll go into that community, do something locally or regionally, or for a particular narrow segment. And I developed a little bit of a reputation for a while at the UN there, that I was the troublemaker that was always asking NGOs, okay, very good with what you're doing. When are you going to be done? When are you going to be dealing with the last 10% of people that have hunger or health deficiencies and so forth? And they never did that. They never had goals to solve the problem. Their goal is to do some work, to do something, and not achieve something. And the founder of Rotary way back when said, it's all about what you achieve, not what you do. So achieving is about strategic thinking and strategic planning. And that's something here that we've been looking at our club. How can we do that? How can we facilitate coming up with projects goals that have specific goals to achieve something on a world scale, something that's going to improve the achievement of these problems worldwide. The United Nations is super, super aware of this deficiency. And this is why at the high level political forums, and the usually takes place in July, for the last months, actually, first time I heard the Secretary General really talking about it, pushing it was in 2018 or 2019, where he was saying we failed. We're not making any progress on the problems that really are existing in the world. And we don't have the mechanisms, we don't have the projects that have as their goal to make specific inroads. We have broad, generalized projects. Let's make the world better, but we never get down to implementable projects on that scale. And this is where we have the ability, I believe, in Rotary, if we can go and define the goals and create opportunities for clubs to make a difference. Create that homeless person that now has the clothing, they feel better. But guess what? I think they'd feel a lot better if they weren't homeless and if they had a decent income. And so, you know, this is the difference between strategic thinking. I spent the first part of my life in the military as a military officer, ending up at a Corps General Staff. And you know, the thing about it is planning, strategic thinking. It's not about doing what people want. It's doing about what people need, and figuring out those needs to make a meaningful difference. And so I I look at that and we put in our manifesto that we got to figure out how to do those. You know, it's easy to go and say, I know how to do something. Let's do that. It's hard to say this is what's needed. We don't know how to do it yet, but we need to apply ourselves to trying to figure out how we can do it, how we can make that difference. Because otherwise, we're doing something, we're making a lot of movement, but what are we accomplishing that's lasting, that's sustainable? And the UN needs some success in that regard. Rotary needs success in that regard. And if we can come up with projects like the project that we're hoping to still do with the UN to end illiteracy, it starts off with a stupid little thing like let's call on every student in every school in the world to participate in a global readathon for a month, reading 40 minutes a day for 1 month to demonstrate resolve to overcome the education losses due to COVID, and have the Secretary General and have the ministries of education in all countries pushing all students to simply participate in that, and all Rotary and Lions clubs encouraging their local businesses and people to incentivize their local students to read by simply pledging a tiny amount of money for each hour read by their own local children in their own local school, and earmarking that money to reduce the number of children in the world who are not in school due to poverty. That literally we could in 1 year raise over $2 billion very easily, and reduce the number of children not in school due to poverty by over 10 million in 1 year. Those are the kinds of things that would get the press talking about us, get people aware of what we're about, and get people wanting to join us and being able to make a real difference. Anyway, I'm back on my soapbox here. So, but the thing has shifted a little because I'm very concerned right now. Education, we still have to go and eliminate illiteracy. We still have to go, and we've got to go and figure out a way to raise children to love learning and to be confident in their ability to learning. Whether they learn algebra or history, secondary. The thing is, they have to learn to love to learn and realize the tools are becoming available that they can now learn anything they want, and that they're able to do that. But the problem is right now, AI is the biggest danger the world's facing, much more than climate change, because it's going to happen much faster. And right now, we're just heading straight for that cliff, and we're sort of just saying, well, we're hoping somebody's going to build a bridge by the time we get there. And I don't think that's good enough. And that's the purpose of today's meeting. Okay. I want to stop. I want to hear from more of you about this, about do we really need to try to get more people to focus on these issues and be more aware of these problems? Or am I overreacting and overstating the issue?
Bill, I've challenged you, I think, to get on to Joe Rogan. Did I ever challenge you to do that?
I don't recall. I think you've mentioned him, but I don't recall.
Okay, this is one thing that I do with somebody like Joan or Dietmar or whoever. Many people on this call have been able to, would be able to, when they put it forth in a way that would be, quote, attractive. And you can use your AI to set it up because I found out his address and stuff like that. But I'll put it into the chat, this challenge. I did it to Ben Bowler and to John Raymer and Kurt Johnson and Steve Farrell. These are all guys that have incredible organizations of change makers. And we've got to get the people that are change makers out into the what you might call the general public, because we're singing to the choir. And we've been singing to the choir way too long. And I've been a person who brought meditation into businesses in the 80s and into sports in the 70s and so on. And at that time, nobody was hardly doing me meditation, and especially to the degree it's happening now. And it's everywhere because it works. And it works in so many different ways. And that super concentration that people get from it, and so on and so forth. But let me get this, and then we'll let other people talk about it while I find this Joe Rogan note to you.
Okay.
Yeah, can I say, I think Kurt's right. I find this with environmental groups. They all sit in a little room and pontificate how the world is going to hell and back, and something has to happen, and then they do the gloom and doom approach to the public. What we found over 23 years of doing the FBSC was just going out there and hosting events and getting feedback. And what people wanted to know is, tell me what I can do, how I can do it. I'm talking about adults, not children. Um, uh, we had children things, but they were more fun and had them name things and see we had a different approach. But in terms of the environment and building that awareness, um, that's how we did it. Now for children, and in Ontario, I'm going to say Ontario, Canada, because I know what happened in Ontario. When I was involved with the environmental movement, and we started to talk about recycling, the resistance from the public was so huge. So what happened was it took 20 years, but we went into the schools, and it was the children that were making sure that the adults were recycling and doing things like that. It was quite amazing. My own sister, she said to me, I can't throw anything away because Ryan, her son, make sure that I don't. So I think what we have to look at is what is it that we're trying to achieve at the end of it, and who is our target to do that? How do we collaborate with different groups that are already doing things, so capacity building, and put a plan together? You can talk forever, it's really I see this all the time. Cities do it a lot, and it takes 20 years before they do one simple step that could have been done 20 years before, and how many people they could have impacted. So I think we identify all of us that there are issues. We are not going to solve all of them. I think you have decided that we're going to do the literacy for children. Which children, which grades. Choose 3 schools. Like it's just start an implementation plan. You're not never going to learn until you do something and make a lot of mistakes. You cannot do projects that are successful without making mistakes. I'm sorry to say.
There's one thing that's interesting in trying to do things that make a major impact that I learned. As I mentioned here, I did 3 projects. We averaged about 100,000 students across the entire country from every state. And we actually were on track to have 10 million students participating, but we made the mistake of linking it to the 500th anniversary of Columbus's arrival just before 3 movies came out that he was the most evil person to walk the face of the planet, and the whole thing fizzled. But we had pledges from
Not according
teachers.
to Trump.
Yeah. Well, we had the pledges from schools literally all across the Northern Hemisphere to have over 10 million participants, student participants, for an entire year, doing projects every month for a year. I found out it is way easier than one thinks. But one of the things that I found makes a huge difference. Um, it's a lot easier to mobilize 100,000 people than it is to mobilize 1,000 people.
Yeah, I
Uh,
agree. I
it, and
agree.
yeah, and this is something here we can pick up by looking at companies like McDonald's, by Nike, clothing and things like this. These people are marketing experts. They really know how to uh, get people to do what they want them to do. And that is what we look to do. And I can't take credit for it. I took 3 years traveling around the country speaking to educators and students. And it was a 17-year-old girl who really woke me up to the fact that it's not that difficult to mobilize the masses if you aim to do that. If you say, oh, I'm going to build something small and then I'll expand it and I'll expand it. Throughout history, almost all those kinds of efforts have failed. The efforts that have generally succeeded are the efforts that go out and say, let's change the whole world and get a momentum going.
Well, if you take that attitude, I mean, I often say that what is the biggest network there is? Christianity.
Mhm.
Jesus started with 12.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Wait, but here's the thing about it. If you take a look at the growth of Christianity, it was mostly kings and emperors that dictated that all their populations would switch.
yeah, it was a dictation. That's
Right.
right.
And that is a speaker at the UN that once got up at a meeting there, and who's was a historian or studied history a lot, who pointed out that he was not able to find in history any example of grassroots social initiatives that grew from the bottom up. That almost every single impactful social change in the world was top down. That top down
I
push.
don't know about that. I think that in the US anyway, during the 60s, a lot of those people in the flower child, I think made quite a lot of impact with their own um, philosophies. We had the growth of the environmental movement, and that all started from the
Yeah.
grassroots.
But how
Um,
effective has it been? Think of the Rio conference and the
I don't want to get into a discussion around that. We can't do that. But what I was trying to say is that um, numbers are important. I do agree. But more important is to start something.
yes. Oh, I agree with
That's
that.
the point I was trying
Yeah,
to make.
yeah. I'm just saying here that if we think again, going back to my military history, the soldiers on the ground, the sergeants are the ones we romanticize and that got into the real battle type of thing, and we sort of play down the generals that were sitting in their cushy offices back from the front, but it was those generals that generally won the wars. They were the ones that made sure the logistics took place. They made sure that the strategies made sense. Those were the ones, in the end of the day, that actually drove the wars and determined who was going to win and lose. And so we have the opportunity to strategically say, this is what's needed. find out the ways so that we can take all those Rotary clubs that want to do something, our 46,000 clubs down there, and if we can come out and create the framework to help them be successful. That's what, if we look at, again, the strategy of McDonald's, the people in the headquarters doing the strategies are not the people that eat the hamburgers. What they do is they come up with the strategies that maximize the success of the individual stores on the ground. So what we need to do is find ways to maximize the success of the individual Rotary clubs, which we can do because not every Rotary club's got the marketing expertise. Economies of scale work. We can pull together the people, the best brains to come up with the solutions, the supply chains, everything else to provide the people on the ground with the training, with the tools, with the resources to be successful, to make a real difference and become the heroes of their community, because now they can actually go and eliminate illiteracy. They can actually go and reduce the number of children not at grade level, because we can go and provide them with the means and the processes which they may have never have anybody locally who experienced. We can do it. Think here of just being able to provide toilets for everybody, going and saying to half the world, you go out and come up with some toilets, or do
But
something.
I think that we have to take it away from the person that's doing it. Like instead of calling them heroes, rephrase it and say what joy or what impact you bring into the community. So it's about the community people and the effects of that, the benefits of what it does to the community, rather than somebody feeling like, I don't want to feel like I'm a hero going to somebody. I just want to see that I was able to help someone and I did it.
Right. But
Like,
there's a difference between there's a difference between doing something that's good and making a difference and having an impact. So
But
if
what
you,
I'm saying is that I try to always turn it around and identify what does that person want. Like for example, I was asked to speak at a violence against women, against people. I had them change it because men are suffering from violence as well. And it took me 4 years, but they finally changed it. Uh, but so we focus on the violence rather than the gender, right? And people, there was a lot of pushback on that. And I said, well, look, if we're going to create a society where we're talking about what happens rather than to whom it happens to, because men are not going to come forth and talk. It's not a male thing. But if we start talking about it and make it generic, they'll feel that they can. Anyway, the thing is that I've never suffered from domestic violence. I mean, I can't empathize in that sense. But why they asked me to speak is because they wanted to know some coping skills and how and I spoke about being a racial minority in a completely white city, which and they said, well, how did you cope with that? And I said, my first thing was that my color was not my problem, it was everybody else's problem.
Mhm.
I didn't give a shit what they thought. Just right. And so they're like, oh, I said, just turn it around. Don't let other people
I,
disempower you.
I did the same thing in South LA, so to speak, because I'm the only white guy there. Last night I was at
Yeah.
Hello Hilarity, which was a comedy show. My wife and I and a buddy that we brought were the only white people in the whole room. Everybody else was looked like they were either from Africa or Asia or somewhere
Right.
other than uh, the white areas of the world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was lucky in the sense that my husband is white and a lot of white guys liked him and admired him. So that, that was a lot of help. So I have to be honest. So I was just Glenn's wife at first, but that's okay. I was fine with that, at first. But what I'm saying is that, it's not so much that you just look at the choir that is already because all of these gender people talking about violence, it's all women who have suffered from it, but they're just thinking about the victimization of it rather than the solution of it, or how do they speak to other people who don't understand it, or how do they get policy makers and things like that, because they're so embroiled in the anger and in the lack of opportunities to get help. That's what I'm saying. The approach
Mhm.
is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's I mentioned here, one of the problems that why we're not seeing any a significant progress towards solving the problems of the world. Part of it was that we couldn't find projects that had as their goal meaningfully moving closer to resolution of those problems. Almost all the goals were, as I said, oriented towards assisting the victims. But the second problem we found was because almost all the projects were local or regional, that we saw that in any given year there was so many projects, but they only hit about 3-4% of the communities around the world. The more than 90% of the communities were unaffected by any particular goal on any given year. And then we would find in a couple of years, new communities would join the mix each year, but other communities would drop out. So that
Nice.
the net result, we were not able to leverage the economy of scale. So when we looked at what a lot of communities did, and they were, hey, we did something good, but when we actually looked into it from the outside objectively, they didn't
Yeah.
do anything really good. And this is why here, if we take a look, the whole world, the success is going to economies of scale where they can afford to bring the proper expertise, the proper resources, and the proper processes together to make a difference. And there's this romanticizing of the grassroots and so forth, but it's not. I started off, I don't care, but when I look at the results, and so I just go back and say, okay, let's see how good did the grassroots approaches do, and then we see they didn't really do much. We go and look at a handful of cases of that leverage the economies of scale, and we see, wow, they made a big difference. And this is
Okay, so
something.
if that's your approach, then where do we go from here?
Well, this is it. We've defined a number of projects. We were interrupted by COVID. We've defined a number of projects that have the potential. And this is when we look at a project, we just have to ask ourselves, does this project have the potential to move the needle on the global statistics, global progress towards resolving that problem? If not, don't do it. Go back to the
But
drawing board and
COVID
look
was
for
5 years
something.
ago, right?
Yeah, but
So like,
but the effect, if you take a look at the effect
yeah.
around the world, we have not recovered education wise this year in the United States, this year, 2025, the National Academic Achievement Education Program tests resulted that we have just passed 40% of our fourth graders have not achieved even basic reading skills, which is not, even if they had achieved basic skills, that's not enough to do grade level work. But
So
they
your
are
project
below
would
basic.
focus mostly on the US?
No, no,
Is
no,
that what
no,
you're
no,
saying?
no. Oh,
Oh.
we had two levels. If we look at education, there's two main problems. In the developed countries, the problem is that despite the resources being there, we're not achieving the results. And that is because we're not recognizing that there's a difference between the students coming to school from a lower socioeconomic background are not the same as students coming to school from a higher socio. So we cannot just go and say, oh, we're going to treat everybody the same, which is what our state level curriculums do. The
Hmm.
problem in developing countries is many cases access. So we got these two levels of projects. Some are based on access, some are based on the
So
results, the
pick one
outcomes.
to start.
No, we defined here, and I think I sent to you a list of about 12 projects that we've defined. Some of
You
them,
did?
I'm pretty sure, along with the manifesto, I sent a manifesto, plus there was two files. One's the manifesto, and one is a
Okay.
file of the contemplated projects that we would like to do. In the
Okay. Oh,
contemplated projects, we have projects that are aimed specifically at literacy, and that we have a preschool level project. We have a project for elementary school levels. We have projects for high school levels, which get into problem solving and confidence building and encouraging people to dare to be great, if you would. And then we even had a university level project that was more on a global scale to be able to provide free university pretty much to anybody in the world.
where did you send it? By email or by?
That would have been well,
Because
it
I'm
could have
looking
been
at
either
it.
by email or I attached the file links in a WhatsApp. It could, I don't recall right now which one.
Probably WhatsApp
Probably
because I don't
WhatsApp.
Yeah.
remember it in an email at
Yeah.
all.
But that
I
describes
don't
here,
see
and,
it.
and there's a whole family of projects, about projects that are based on a initiative out of India called Design for Change, where they encourage middle school and senior primary school students to find major problems in their community and come up with solutions and solve them. And these kids, it's amazing when you see kids 9, 8, 9 years old, and they decide the biggest problem in their community is the roads are in bad shape, and the kids take on the mission to fix all the roads in their
You know,
community.
that's that whole idea behind the Peacemakers Challenge
Yeah,
is getting the kids to be able to figure out what is the
definitely.
issue that they want to be able to face and solve in their particular room
Yeah.
and or community
You
and
have
so
to
on.
look here at that Design for Change. I think they now have something like 40,000 schools that participate in this worldwide, and they then have a worldwide meeting of the schools that have done the most amazing things, where the kids come up and do these amazing projects, where some of them have gone out and gathered all the illiterate adults in their community, and these 9 and 10-year-old kids are teaching all the adults in their community how to read. But I I just packed up the materials here, because you can see the shelves behind me are getting empty because I've got so many materials on that. But the idea here is these projects, we've got them defined. We need to get back to where we were in 2019, if you would, where we were very close to implementing these, getting the necessary people on board. And so because the we had a bunch of students in the Interact clubs across Europe and Africa, who, when they heard about the idea at the convention in Hamburg, they decided, oh yeah, let's go and do this. But they didn't see themselves that they would be able to get the powers to be at the UN and others. So they said, we'll use social media. We'll contact schools. They contacted a bunch of schools, and primarily, I think, Uganda and across Europe. And the schools all said, "Oh, we love this idea of this readathon idea. Let's do it." And so they sent out all the materials and everything, and they said, "Wow, this is going to be really great." The time came, nobody did it. Nobody did it. They went back to the schools afterwards, and they said, "Yeah, yeah, we love the idea. We want to do it, but we need the approval of the Ministry of Education. We're not allowed to go and just do things on our own." And that we got that across Uganda, and we got that across Austria, the Netherlands, Germany. I don't remember what other. I think in England, that where these schools had all said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah," but then they can't do it. And I knew from my grandchildren that in their elementary school, I went and talked to the principal there one time, and they're not allowed to say boo if the Ministry of Education has not put it on the agenda. They have absolutely zero local authority to do anything. So you've got to do two things. You've got to get the local media, and you've got to get the local political structures to support it and encourage it. But you've got to get the ministries of education to call for it. And we were at the point with the UNESCO. There's 150 ministries of education around the world that are part of an initiative within UNESCO to make a difference. So our plan was to have the Secretary General call for all the students around the world to participate in this initiative, to demonstrate their resolve to overcome the education losses due to COVID, and have the ministers of education of these 150 ministries to echo that out to their schools and say, let's do this. Or in some cases, we had a representative go and meet with the ministers of education of the time in Pakistan, and we asked how many, and I think he said 40 million students would be participating, and he said it's going to be simple because I'm going to mandate it. And so these are things that we were well on our way to having all that lined up, and then we were supposed to kick off and be part of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations in 2020. And what happened in February of 2020? COVID hit. And that's when the schools stopped responding to things. So, these are things we can get back to doing. What we need to do is pull people together and say, okay, how do we make a difference? And I'll give you one example of the kinds of things that are relatively easy to do. I once said to kids here, you know what? Let's make a major media event. How do we make a major media event? And so we said, let's encourage children from schools around the states in the U.S. to simply write a letter to the Chancellor of Germany saying, hey, I want to get to know Germany. Can you introduce me to a young German? Nobody believed. We went down. I went down with the president of the American Association of Teachers of Germany. We went down to the German embassy in Washington, D.C., talked to them. He said, you guys are crazy. Nobody's going to pay any attention to that. And I got on a plane. We went over to Germany, and I luckily met a guy who was the friend of the chancellor for American Affairs. And when he heard, he got an official car to drive me over to the chancellor's offices and whatnot. But they were very suspicious. Nothing was going to happen. 4 days later, nothing had showed up, and they called me a fraud. They said, you're a fraud. On the fifth day, over 100,000 letters hit the mailroom, which they were totally unprepared for and no way to prepare. Took them months to figure out what to do. We found out that after a couple of months after all those letters, they found a letter from the Prime Minister of Italy buried among all those hundred. It ended up being 116,000, I think, something like that. Snail mail letters that showed up in a period of 2 days. So that's how you make an event, because I met with the Deutsche Welle, the German official media outlet, and when everybody was looking for me because I was a supposed fraud, and she said, you're famous. It's all over the news that the chancellor's office got flooded with these 100,000 letters. So I mean, it's just one example. Imagine if we went and mobilized 20,000 kids across the country to write, and we wanted to influence the mayor of New York City, or if we wanted to influence the secretary general. And we got 20,000 people to send a snail mail letter all on the same day to the secretary general, care of Good Morning America. What do you think? Do you know what 20,000 letters looks like in a pile?
That's a good idea in regard
And
to that idea. Good Morning America. That's
and
for
they're
sure.
sitting there, and they're all those news people are sitting there saying, "What on earth is this? What is this? What is this? Hey, Secretary General, you got to come. You got to tell us what this is, right? You're going to get their attention, right? So this is us thinking outside the box. How do we cause things to happen? And I just use those as a couple of examples, and most of them, hey, I can't take credit for most of those. I'm very good at when young people come up with these crazy ideas to say, why not? Let's give it a try. That whole idea of the readathon was a group of 9 and 10-year-olds in a primary school in Scotch Plains, New Jersey, who we challenged to come up with a Dare to Be Great idea. And that was their idea. They wanted to help their classmates who were weak readers become better readers, and they wanted to help children around the world that can't go to school because they can't afford to or because they have no food. So they wanted to do a readathon that would both help their classmates read and also raise some money to be able to enable more kids to go to school. Um, and they got 70 classmates together, read for 10 days, and they raised enough money to take 250 kids off the streets in Malawi, Africa, get them into school and feed them there for a whole year. Yeah, it's we just need to challenge, make them confident, get them to believe in themselves, and listen, and we can do amazing things. Okay, I'm seeing we're almost done. Joan, did you get an invite for the Commons Cluster Strategy meeting?
I believe it's canceled.
Oh, okay. That's because I didn't see. I tried to contact Lysenka to say what's the story because I didn't see anything. My WhatsApp's not working today.
Oh,
So,
okay. No, I received an email. It says it's the first time that it's been canceled or something.
Okay. Well, then that explains it. Why I don't know. I normally I tried even calling Listen because she didn't answer her phone. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I don't know if they're maybe.
I'm just bringing it up to make sure that I'm telling you, because I didn't have it on my schedule. Dear friends, I have been, um, yeah, uh, where does it say? Was it two that I got? Yeah, it's been postponed until further notice.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to attend. I'm on my way down to Washington on next Saturday, so I wouldn't be able. If it's next Saturday, I can't attend either, because
Yeah,
we've got a large Model UN group of around the world coming to Washington next weekend.
yeah,
So at any
See you
rate,
guys soon.
yes, I hope here you found today's meeting interesting. I don't think we reached the conclusion, unfortunately, here, but I think this goes to what we were talking about in the Commons Cluster, that we have got to try to get groups like this, uh, World Summit for Social um, Development. We've got to get them thinking about post-labor. Where do we go? Because to try to create and protect jobs when you've got all this work, everybody who's studying AI is learning how to replace humans. They're learning how to develop agentic technology, which is all about turning the work over to AI. And that's coming gangbusters. It's really coming gangbusters. But it's like when you're developing automation, you develop, and nothing is visible to the outside. You just because the development's taking place. And then it's done, and then bang. Today, with cloud technology, can implement worldwide in minutes. And we go over the cliff. And people need to be aware of that because the danger, if we go over the cliff and we start losing the jobs like crazy, individual countries are going to go and look at for their own interest, and we are literally going to see the Southern Hemisphere just be cast off with no help, no interaction anymore, other than we'll just go and take their raw materials if we need them. But it's not gonna, there's nothing, it's gonna be the Northern Hemisphere taking care of themselves and saying, screw you, Southern Hemisphere. And although that's the way it's always been, that's not the way we want it to be. And the only way to avoid that is to get the UN to at least start the process of saying, how do we avoid an undesirable future? And and that's it just starts at least talking. But as long as people are just saying, stick your head in the sand, don't worry about it, it'll
yeah,
blow over, we're
yep,
just aiming for a disaster. Okay. I want to thank everybody. I'm 2 minutes early if we end quick.
yeah.
So
So, did
thank
you want us to meet and talk a little bit about the common cluster after this?
we can do that here. Use the regular WhatsApp that or use the same Zoom number, or just if you want, you just stay on the Zoom call here and
Okay,
we can talk a little bit about that.
okay.
So, but for the rest of you here, I thank you, and I will work to get this. Joan, what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this one so I
Yeah,
capture the recording, and then
yeah.
I'm going to come right back on. So give
And
me
I'll do
three
the same.
minutes. Okay,
I'll do the
great.
same. Bye.
Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.